All right, folks, the All-Star break is over. It's time to get back to work.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they call it these days. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get hold of me is leave a message right here on the YouTube page. I read all of them, even if I lose track of them. Seriously, who wrote the thing asking me what I would do if I owned my own franchise? I want to do that, but I want to give the person who asked me that credit. And if you didn't ask me that, ask it again so I could do that show, and I'll give it to someone else. And then Scott Campbell Kemp is the person who got the trivia question correct. The trivia question was, who was the last, and as far as I know, the only Tampa Bay Ray ever to win the All-Star Game MVP? The answer is Carl Crawford. Carl Crawford had a wonderful career until he came to the Red Sox, and then things kind of fell apart with the Red Sox. But he was a really, really good player with the Tampa Bay Rays, and it's he's one of those players that it's kind of a shame because more people remember him from the his not good years with Boston, and forget the fact that he was a pretty dang good player while playing for Tampa Bay for all those years. And I dropped one of my notes. Someone, by the way, I forget who, someone asked me, hey, I'm impressed that you remember the ads when I do them on location like today. I don't. I'm holding notes. I'm holding notes right there. I can read them right there. I've done this before. I'm a pro. But like some people will like trash a player for like a big contract or something like that. You know, Bobby Bonilla was a really, really good player. That's why he got a huge contract. Kevin Brown had some seasons where he was one of the elite pitchers in all of baseball. That's why he got that massive contract when he did. But when things fall apart in the contract, they're like, oh, this contract stinks. Why did he get that? Because he was really good. Mike Hampton was really good. You know? And it's also one of the reasons why I don't feel so badly when a player who has his best years when he's under team control and they don't have to pay him all that much. You know, I'll gladly accept a low baseball salary. But, you know, in terms of the value he's bringing to the team, and to be paid later on, you know what? I think that's paying someone for past services, and I don't really mourn for the player that's happening to. Hey, let's get down to brass tacks here. The All-Star break is over, and that means the good stuff is about to happen. The parts of the season that we are going to predominantly remember are on the verge of happening. You can no longer say it's early. You can no longer say, wow, you know, it's early. It's a small sample size. The All-Star game is in our rearview mirror. More than half the season is played, and the next couple of weeks are two of the most critical weeks of the season, because this is that time after the All-Star break. The cobwebs are going to be, coming off, and the trade deadline is coming up. So if you're a team that is on the proverbial bubble and you got a lot of assets, you could trade them off and stock up for next year. Or you can say, well, the Tigers did it last year. What are we doing? You got to make those decisions. I brought up the Diamondbacks the other day that they have a bunch of players who the Yankees should be salivating for. Multiple relievers, a good solid third baseman, and they should be putting together a package saying, we want your best pitcher, your best pitching process. We want them now. They should be doing stuff like that. Apparently the Yankees are talking to the Pirates for Mitch Keller, who I think would be a great fit for the Yankees. But you're going to start seeing stuff Will the Red Sox trade Jared Duran? I don't know. They traded away Rafael Devers, who went on the huge winning streak. I don't know how baseball works anymore. But a bunch of series are starting up, and some of them have some immediate ramifications. There's going to be a day game played in Wrigley Field on this morning. The Red Sox and the Cubs. Red Sox are on a massive winning streak. And the Cubs, who have been in first place practically all year and would be having a bye in the wild card series, are allowing the Milwaukee Brewers to go knocking on heaven's door right behind them. And Cub fans are like, nah, come on, this is our year to win the division, right? And the Red Sox fans, who saw the team punt in June and then saw the team become unbeatable in July, and they are a game behind the Yankees, and within a good August of playing for the division after trading Devers. I don't know how baseball works anymore. Giolito is pitching for the Red Sox. Ray is pitching for the Cubs. We're going to see if this was a really good stretch for the Red Sox and then they return back to earth, or if they truly are contenders. Here's step one. Big test, Chicago Cubs playoff team right out of the gate. A couple other big games are going on. The Padres. We all thought the Padres were going to be pennant contenders this year. And they are, as of this recording, they're a playoff team. And they have enough talent on the team that if they make the postseason, they can go far. If they make the postseason, they could make an impact. They're only a half game ahead of San Francisco, but they got to take a look and say, okay, we got to put the aft thrusters on. We got to put the aft thrusters on and try to make heads or tails out of whether or not we're a real contender or not, a real pennant contender or not. And their time starts with the Nationals, a team that's on a really bad funk that cost Dave Martinez his job, and Rizzo as well. Padres have got to fatten themselves up on the Nats. Dylan Cease's pitching. Come out of the gates firing. And a strange series is starting in Philadelphia. Now, the Phillies are just ahead of the Mets. I picked the Phillies to win the World Series this year. And if they make the playoffs, which I think they will, and if they win the division, which they might, they have the pitching staff and the bats to do something. I stand by my pick for the Phillies winning the World Series. I don't think they're a lock, but I don't think it's a bad pick, and I'm not going to waver from it. They're going to be playing the Angels. The Angels are hovering just below 500. The Angels could be this year's Tigers. Sub 500 after the All-Star break. But if they have, and they've been pretty good the last month, if they play well, the Angels are fighting to make it above 500. That would be a big step for this Angel team. And if you're above 500 in the American League, you got a shot. Going up against the Phils, who can be up and they can be down. This is an early test for the Angels. And a big test for the Giants, who are going north of the border. Justin Verlander has not pitched badly, but he has as many wins as I do this year. Giants are half a game out. And remember, the Blue Jays went on that rampage in June and July, and they did a leapfrog over the New York Yankees. Now comes the time. Are they a legit division contender? Easy for you to say. Or did they have a good month and a half? Now we find out. We find out about the Red Sox. We're going to find out about the Blue Jays. We're going to find out if some of these teams can contend. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other contenders, and some of the other series are starting. So right out of the gate, there's going to be some interest. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball like me, under the lights, or golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Now, I use it for my favorite matchups, especially pitching matchups. Who's pitching? Mizorowski? Skeens? Fried? Me? Who's pitching? I always go up and say who's going to have the most strikeouts. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes regular season games feel like postseason excitement, even with the Pirates. Whether you're playing a same-game parlay, watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's talk about some of the other series as the All-Star break is now over. Some of the other series coming right out of the gate. The Reds and the Mets. The Reds want to contend. The Reds have had some parts of this year where they look like they should be contenders, and some parts where they look like they should be selling. And the Mets sometimes this year look like, oh my God, it's going to be 1969, 86, and 2025. And other times you're thinking, oh my God, is it Bobby Bonilla and Vince Coleman and those dreadful Mets again? They're very difficult to figure out. The Mets are just barely on the outside looking in of a division title. The Reds want to be a wild card team. The Reds want to be a wild card team. The Mets want to win the World Series. Here's an early test. The other New York team are the Yankees. The Yankees had a really, really weird July. They went on a massive losing streak. Then they went on a massive winning streak. And then they lost 2 stupid games to the Cubs. They've made one move to shore up their defense, which was to put Jazz Chisholm in the correct position. But they've also suffered some more injuries to their pitching staff, if that's even possible. They need a third baseman and I think 2, 3, or maybe even 4 pitchers at the trade deadline, which is why I think Arizona is the perfect trade partner with them, because they could get them a third baseman and 3 or 4 pitchers. And if it costs the Yankees a couple of prospects who will have nothing to do with the 2025 season, look, I'm not saying trade away all your best prospects, but you have a chance to win the pennant this year and maybe more. They're even playing the Braves, who I think should probably sell. I'm stunned by how bad the Braves have been this year. And who knows, maybe they'll have a phenomenal couple of weeks and find themselves back into it. But I haven't seen evidence that that's about to happen. The Orioles, they're going to be trading away some players. The Rays don't have many home games left. Remember, their schedule was top-heavy, so they played more games in Tampa outside when things are not as horrific as they are later in the year. But good news, really good news, and news that I'm very, very happy about. If the Rays make the playoffs, and as of this recording, the Rays are on the outside looking in, but if they do indeed make the playoffs and do indeed host a postseason game, Major League Baseball has made the decision that they would indeed play the playoff games at Steinbrenner Field. Now, it's of course not optimum to be playing a playoff game in a minor league ballpark, but do you know what also is an optimum? Playing it in a neutral site. Not playing it in Miami, not playing it somewhere else. If they have to play it in Steinbrenner Field, and by the way, I'm not a Rays fan, but I'm rooting for the Rays because I want to see that happen. I want to see the Rays be a wild card team and host the wild card series. Hell, I want to see them make the division series. Hell, I may root for them to go all the way to the World Series. Just so we have, by the way, that would be a tremendous middle finger to the Yankees if the Rays win the pennant. And welcome to the World Series. Welcome to Steinbrenner Field, home of the American League champion Tampa Bay Rays. You know what? I love anarchy enough to kind of root for that to happen. Now, a strange series is starting. The Tigers are the best team in the American League. You make a strong case of the best team in baseball. And right now, they probably should be the favorite to win the American League pennant, although sleep on Houston at your own risk. The Rangers are the team that a lot of people, including your pal Sully, thought they were going to win the pennant. Mainly because it's an every other year thing for Bruce Bochy. Tigers are playing the Rangers. The Rangers are barely under 500, but they could have a really good end of July and August and climb back into this thing. But they have to do it right now, and they have a tough opponent right out of the gate. But if they can hold their own with this Tiger team, who's been playing a charmed first half of the season, then that would be a good first test for the Rangers and might give them the confidence they need to move forward. If the Twins are going to do anything and make any run at the wild card, they've got to start winning right now. Now, they're going to be playing the Colorado Rockies. And series against the Rockies are really, really good for your confidence. The Cardinals and the D-backs, the Cardinals are a wild card, or want to be a wild card team. They're kind of on the outside looking in, but clearly they have some talent. The D-backs, there's so much talent on that team, but they also have so many pending free agents. I told you they need to sign one or two of their pending free agents to an extension and trade the rest in packages. Because if they can pick up a couple more blue chip prospects and then go into the next year, not just waving goodbye to their free agents, but putting some more bodies into their farm, that can go a long way. So this game, the series of St. Louis versus Arizona, could be a bit of an auction for some of those players. The Astros and the Mariners. If the Mariners want to win the American League West, these head-to-head games with the Houston Astros are going to go a long way. The Mariners are a playoff team right now. The Astros are the division leader. And quite frankly, I know Detroit has the better record. I really like this Houston team in a short series in the postseason. But we're going to have to see. And the Brewers and the Dodgers, that's a very weird series because the Brewers are on a roll. They found a new ace, and they have some good pitching anyway. And all of a sudden, the Brewers, who got off to a bit of a clunky start, are making a beeline to win another division title. The Dodgers, who are the Dodgers, but they're on a massive slump right now. Now, not enough of a slump that they have to really worry that the Padres or the Giants are going to take over and win the division. The Dodgers, unless they just go on an absolute nosedive, are going to win the division. But the Brewers are catching them at a slightly vulnerable point. And if the Red Sox continue their hot streak and the Dodgers continue their cold streak, you might see the Brew Crew doing a leapfrog to the top of the division. Now, there's three other series going on. The A's and the Guardians. If the Guardians are going to amount to anything, Cleveland's going to do anything, they're going to have to clobber Sacramento and go on a big winning streak at this point. I'm really surprised that Cleveland hasn't been a bigger factor this year. And they're, clobbering San Francisco, correct. Sacramento is going to be a big thing. Sandy Alcantara is going to be pitching for the Marlins. And I've been saying that the Marlins have to be building towards something because they've been playing pretty well recently. But I understand the Alcantara being on the block. I wish he would stick around. But he's not pitching particularly well. But he does have value because he was a recent Cy Young Award winner, and maybe a change will do him good, to paraphrase Elton John. And also, if the Marlins can get a legit major league ready player in an Alcantara deal with a team that's already playing pretty well, this Marlins team could continue to play well. I would love a realistic goal for the Marlins is try to get to 500. If they can get to the high 70s, like a 78 win team, that would be a step in the right direction. And if the Marlins actually had a owner, they'd be able to say, let's take a team that's improved and made the playoffs in 2023 and build on that. I really hope they do. I would like to see the Marlins do well. There's a bunch of players the Marlins I like. And Miami fans, they deserve it. They deserve something being built there. Meanwhile, the White Sox and the Pirates, yeah, that's going to happen. Cool. Enjoy the game. Before we wrap up the show, I want to pay tribute to a former All-Star who we lost over the last couple of days, Jim Clancy. He was a pitcher who was, omnipresent if you collected Topps cards throughout the late 70s, and the 80s into the 90s. He made the All-Star team in 1982. He was part of the 1977 Toronto Blue Jays team, the original Toronto Blue Jays team. And he became a staple on the Blue Jays for years and years and years. And he oftentimes, he led the league in starts when he made the All-Star team. in 1982. He started 40 games. He also led the league in the American League in starts with 36 starts in 84. And when the Blue Jays finally turned the corner and went from a good team to a playoff team in 1985, he was a very big part of that rotation, along with Dave Stieb, who I think belongs in the Hall of Fame, and Jimmy Key and Doyle Alexander. They had a really good pitching staff. And he was part of the 1987 Toronto Blue Jays, which I personally think is the single most talented team I've ever seen to not make the playoffs. That team was absolutely stacked with one of the greatest outfields in the history of baseball, George Bell, Lloyd Mosby, and Jesse Barfield. They also had talent all over the place. Willie Upshaw, Fred McGriff, Cecil Fielder, Damasio Garcia, Manny Lee, Tony Fernandez, Ernie Witt. I mean, the absolute Rance Mulliniks, a young Kelly Gruber. The talent on that team was off the charts. Jimmy Key, David Wells. You had Tom Hankey, Dwayne Ward. Just an unbelievable staff that they had on that team. And they came up just a game short to the Detroit Tigers. Under the current situation, they would have been the AL East champions. The Tigers would have been the Central champions. And the Minnesota Twins, I guess they would have been a wild card team. They went on to win the World Series that year. I digress. But he was there year in and year out. And he had his all-star season, but most of the time, he was a good, reliable number 3 starter. Again, they had Dave Stieb, who was one of the best pitchers of the decade, and Jimmy Key, who was a legitimate Cy Young contender many, many years. But Jim Clancy was a pitcher who gave the Blue Jays 30-some-odd starts a year, 200-some-odd innings a year. He wound up going to the Houston Astros later in his career and finished his career with the Atlanta Braves and pitched in the 1991 World Series. His final games as a major leaguer was as a member of the 1991 Atlanta Braves and pitching in that World Series. The single greatest World Series I ever saw was the 1991. At that point, he was basically a mop-up man. But he was on that staff, and that staff they didn't have Maddox, but they had a young Tom Glavine, a young John Smoltz, a young Steve Avery, a young Mark Wohlers, a young Kent Merker, a young Mike Stanton. They had all these really, really talented young pitchers on the team. And they also had a slew of experienced veterans like Charlie Lee Brandt, like Juan Berenguer, like Alejandro Pena, and like Jim Clancy. And so if you saw those young pitchers who were all building up and becoming great, some of them Hall of Famers and certainly all-star pitchers, they had a bunch of just genuine pros on the team that they could learn from. Jim Clancy is he was a kind of a player that you don't really see in baseball anymore. The innings eater. Someone who's not a huge star, again, made the all-star team. His peaks were tremendous, but he also wasn't a superstar. But he was reliable. 200 some odd innings a year for 30, 40 starts a year, which means all season long, you handed him the ball, you know you're going to get 6 to 7 innings. Wouldn't necessarily be a dominant 6 or 7 innings, but it would be a 6 or 7 innings good enough to win the game. He would always win a bunch of games, and back then people cared about win-loss records. And the fact of the matter is that he was a type of pitcher that you just don't see anymore. You don't have that guy who you just hand the ball to and you give me 6 or 7 every time. He would not make it today. He would be somebody who pitches 5 innings and then the bullpen would wear down. And I'm being a little old man Sully here. I really am. But there was a purpose for the innings eater. There was the purpose for give me 6 or 7. To know that your bullpen isn't going to be worn to the ground, or you're not seeing someone throwing a dominant game, and then in the middle of the 5th inning, we're going to go to the pen. And at the end of the year, I'm telling you, at the trade deadline, you're going to see team after team saying, well, we need some relief help because our bullpen is worn out. Gee whiz, I wonder why. You're not letting pitchers pitch to the order for the 3rd or 4th time in a game, and I understand the metrics show that, it gets harder, but you know what? Roll up your sleeves and do it because your bullpen's worn out. It's not like when you acquire a bullpen arm from another team that they've had them frozen in carbonite, And now they can, you heat them up, they fall out of the carbonizer. Okay, I haven't pitched all year. They're worn out wherever the hell they're pitching too. Pitchers like Jim Clancy served a purpose. Get in there, help us win the game. I'm struggling through the 6. Well, get through the 6. I don't want to use the bullpen 5-6 innings a game. I would like to see teams get back to developing innings eaters, because that may help the bullpens not be exhausted every year, and that we won't see teams in the World Series filled with guys like, well, he's pitched 2 major league games this year and he was called up in the middle of September. They have to put him on the roster because these 5 major league relief pitchers are all sitting in a full body cast. Learn how to get through that 6th and into the 7th inning 30 or 40 times a year. So you have a durable rotation will allow you to have a healthy bullpen. Just like having a healthy bullpen will allow you to not put the starting pitcher in a bad position. So rest in peace, Jim Clancy. And may we find more Jim Clancys in the years ahead. Maybe don't always focus on someone who can throw the ball 110 miles an hour. Maybe find someone who maybe isn't going to be put in a situation where their arm is going to implode, but instead, I know how to get some batters out. It's not always going to be a 2-hit shutout, but we'll win more than we lose. Rest in peace, Jim Clancy. And it's going to bring up the trivia question, which is this. Who was the last pitcher to throw 300 innings in a season? And now you would lose your job if you threw 201 innings. Who was the last pitcher to throw 300 innings in a season? Put the answers down below on the YouTubes. And thanks for making Locked On MLB your first listen today, your second listen. Keep it here and check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every night all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night right here on the Locked On MLB feed on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Talking about the nominal second half of the season beginning, and teams that are on the bubble have to make some hard decisions. And rest in peace, Jim Clancy. This has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.